A huge game in the NFC North between the Packers and Bears from Chicago. And right now the Bears are about a 1.5-point favorite in that one. Critical game in the NFC playoff race and in the division race there for the NFC North. And then you've also got another touchdown favorite on the road. The Eagles are playing at the Commanders. So we got an NFL doubleheader, a college football playoff tripleheader, and there you have it, going into an NFL Sunday, man. This is the best time of the year for sports. I love the football like you do, and I'm pumped to watch all of these games. Now, the one question I have, and if you want to comment, you can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. You can also call the show at 503-248-0620. But what I don't understand after watching part of this game this morning and the game last night that we saw with Oklahoma and Alabama, why is it that these high-level programs that have a ton of money flowing in and out of their NIL department, why is it that these teams are so weak in special teams and, more importantly, the kicking game? We have seen multiple missed field goals today, and we saw a missed field goal last night that was very costly for Oklahoma. And it just blows my mind that these big-level, high-level college football teams continue to put themselves in a bad position by not having somebody they can trust who can step out there and make a kick. Because inevitably, when it comes down to it in the playoff, you're going to get into a very tight one-possession game. A lot of times for these big-time schools throughout the course of the regular season, you might be in one or two close one-possession type games throughout the regular season. But when you get into the playoff, most of these games are going to come down to 4 or 5 big plays that determine the outcome. And if you don't have the proper guy that can step up and make a kick, it's going to come back to haunt you. And for the Miami Hurricanes today, their special teams have been a disaster, as has been A&M's. And when you're playing on the road, you know this, when you settle for field goals or you miss your opportunity to score when you get down in the red area, eventually it's going to come back to bite you. And right now we've got a 3-3 ball game with the Canes and the Aggies late in the fourth quarter at Kyle Field. And I thought for Oklahoma last night, you know, they jumped out to a 17-0 lead. I was curious to see how their offense would do, you know, because it's really been pathetic ever since the hand injury to John Mateer. But the offense wasn't the issue. They put up 24 points last night. And if you would have told me beforehand Oklahoma was going to put up 24 points, I would have told you the Sooners were going to win that game. And I thought they would win a close, low-scoring battle. The total was at 40.5 at Spirit Mountain last night. The game went way over, and there ended up being a lot of scoring. But the disappointing part for Oklahoma, and this is critical, and this is something the Ducks and everybody else in the playoff field who's still alive can think about. It comes down to all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams. And like I mentioned before, these games usually come down to 4 or 5 big plays that determine the outcome. And for Oklahoma, which had been dominant on defense and in special teams throughout the course of the year, they had a mishap with a punt that set Alabama up in good field position. They had a missed field goal, and then John Mateer gave away the football on a pick six. And the problem is when you make those type of mistakes with special teams and with turnovers against good football teams, they make you pay. And you're not going to be able to overcome those type of mistakes and win. And so for the Oregon Ducks, like we talked about yesterday, they're in a great position right now because of, you know, the type of team that Dan Lanning has constructed with their strength up front on the offensive and defensive lines. They've got terrific quarterback play, one of the best in the country, in Dante Moore. So for the Oregon Ducks, they've got the material to be able to win, but it really does come down to ball security and being sound in special teams, situational football. And then, you know, I think for a lot of these games, it's going to come down to, you know, who makes the fewest mistakes or which quarterbacks make the fewest mistakes. And when you protect the football and you live to play another down and you don't put yourself in harm's way, you're going to put yourself in a very good position. And I think that's just something to keep in mind. Miami right now with the football, 8 minutes to play, and they just got a first down at their own 42-yard line. So the game is tied up at 3. I'll keep you up to date on that. And for those of you who are driving down to Eugene right now, safe travels. When I came down to Spirit Mountain Casino, the roadways were pretty clear, and the weather was pretty decent. So it's a beautiful day out there, and it's a pleasure to be with you. So, you know, that's what it really comes down to. These games and a lot of these teams, I think we're going to have some highly competitive football games. You know, it's going to come down to the final possession, so you've got to be sound in those areas. So which team's going to make the fewest mistakes? Which quarterback's going to have the best ball security? And then special teams-wise, which teams are going to be able to make kicks and get the job done? Like right now, Miami just had a turnover at midfield on a fumble. And those are the type of plays that can come back to bite you. So A&M, which has done nothing throughout the entire game, gets a field goal finally, and now they just force a turnover right around near midfield. And you've got 7 minutes and 11 seconds to play in that game. So there you have it. Other than that, you've got the 2 football games coming up tonight in the NFL with the Bears and Packers. Love that game. You know, the question with the Packers, I think teams that have played Denver the following week are 3-10. You've got the Packers who are beat up with no Micah Parsons, and they lose Christian Watson. Are they going to be able to run the football enough and have enough balance and be able to protect Jordan Love to put themselves in a position to win that game? My guess is the Packers, because on paper they are a better team, I think they'll find a way to scratch out a victory. But what I like about Chicago right now, by far the best when it comes to turnover ratio. So they turn it over. They're very opportunistic on defense. And the one thing they've done to take a lot of pressure off of Caleb Williams is they've been running the heck out of the football. And when you run the football really well and you got balance on offense with a young quarterback, it's going to put you in a very good position. You know, the Denver Broncos have been great this year with Bo Nix, but they've asked him to do more than they would probably like because they haven't really been able to generate a consistent ground attack. But the Bears have been very balanced. They run the heck out of the football, and they're opportunistic on defense. I think right now the 2 best teams in terms of turnover ratio, I think it's Chicago and then followed by Jacksonville, who also the same way. They stop the run, they turn it over, and now you've got Trevor Lawrence playing up to the level that people thought he would play at when he entered the NFL. The other game is going to be Philadelphia, and you've got the Eagles taking on the Commanders. And I think the big question here, at least what I have is with this game is, you know, what are the Eagles going to do offensively? You know, they continue to struggle with their offense. They haven't been able to find consistent footing with the ground game, which is surprising considering the work that they did last year with Saquon Barkley. And then for whatever reason, Jalen Hurts with the offense has not been able to really get into a good rhythm this year. And so that is surprising to me because I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's smart. He understands the offense. I think he's a perfect fit for that offense, but they haven't been able to get it going. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I like both underdogs in the NFL tonight. 5:48 to play in the fourth quarter at Kyle Field, A&M and Miami. And right now the game's tied up at 3. Second down and 11, Aggies. They're on the plus side of the field, and we'll see if they're going to be able to score. But the Hurricanes, difficult turnover. And right now both teams under 300 yards in total offense. 100 yards rushing for Miami, less than 100 for A&M. So it's been a bizarre football game. And, you know, these games come down to, you know, just a few plays. So it's going to be very interesting. But, yeah, the kicking game, I don't understand it. Like if I was running a big-time college football program, I would invest a lot of money into finding the best kicker in the country. And what I've learned is with a lot of these athletes, you get guys who go into high school or maybe they play at the D2 level. You're getting a lot of better athletes now who may not be able to play on the next level at their current position, whether it be quarterback, receiver, defensive back, or whatever. But now you have a lot of these better athletes who are focusing on the kicking game. I would find a guy who's a good athlete, who's invested a lot of time into the kicking game, and I would spend money to make sure I've got a guy I can trust in those high-leverage moments. I think it's critical, absolutely critical. And right now it looks like A&M has taken on a big offensive penalty, which is going to back them up. And they could be faced or forced to punt the football away in a tie football game with 4:38 to play. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So there you have it. I'm on air until 3. If you're coming on down to Spirit Mountain Casino, get down here. I've got some giveaways, a couple of sweet gift cards to give away, and we're going to hang out and watch college football. And the great thing is about Spirit Mountain Casino, you can bet on college sports. It's your place to bet on college sports, including the Oregon Ducks. Parlays, teasers, totals, in-game bets on the kiosk machine, prop bets, anything you want is right here. And they've got the current odds to win the college football playoff. Alabama 15-1, Georgia 5-1, Indiana's 3-1, Miami right now is 22-1, A&M 17-1, James Madison 500-1. Ohio State is the favorite right now at plus 225. Ole Miss 25-1, Oregon's 8-1. That's pretty good odds. Texas Tech at 9-1, and Tulane, like James Madison, at 500-1. 4th down and 9 for the Aggies, and it looks like they're going to go for it or they're going to punt. This is crazy. They have the ball at the 41-yard line, 4th down and 9, 10 seconds on the play clock, and it looks like they're trying to decide what they want to do. Going for it here would be absolutely crazy because if you don't get it, you're going to set Miami up in great field position with just 4 minutes to go. And they let the play clock expire, and it looks like A&M is going to punt the football away. All right, reach out to me, 503-248-0620. This is like days of old, man, like the old school Sports Saturday show. So I love being with you. And then we got the Blazer game coming up tonight. Portland looking to make it 3 straight. They're on the road in Sacramento to take on the Kings. Tip-off at 7. Chris Burkhart will have game day at 5, and I'll be on with the network pregame show at 6. My man Brendan Slaughter from Beaver's Edge is with me right now. And coming up next, we're going to talk with Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. We'll cover all the games, college football and NFL coming up next. I get to double up with my Justin Ballinger time. I was here yesterday at Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm here again for the college football playoff. This is your place to bet on college sports. I'm going to be on air until 3. And, of course, we got the Duck game, and this place is going to fill up nicely. Kickoff at 4:30. And here to discuss all of the action, college football, NFL, is my man Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager here at the BetMGM Sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino. Good morning, brother.
Yes, good morning. Welcome back. Long time no see.
Dude, I did not expect a 3-3 football game with just a couple of minutes to play between A&M and Miami, but yet here we are.
Here we are. I mean, it's not maybe the prettiest thing. At least we got a close game, coming down to the wire here. So that's all you can ask for.
And we talked about this yesterday. Last year in these first-round games, the campus side games, the home team won each and every football game. Last night, Oklahoma blew a 17-0 lead. Bama came back and won on the road, and now Miami's in position to get a second road win.
Yeah, maybe 1 year wasn't enough to call it a trend, and maybe this is actually more random than what we expected.
Is that fun for you as a sportsbook manager when you get something new, like a college football playoff with home site games where you don't have enough data to really know what it's going to be like? You have to sit and watch it play out. That's got to be fun for you to see how those trends develop over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's both bettors and the sportsbook side of things. You never really know in these situations. And it's just really fascinating to me, that it is such a new product, the 12 team, and it's we're totally adjusting on the fly here, as we do it, but it's been fun so far, and I love to see where it's headed.
What I wonder is with like for instance Miami, and we've seen this in the NCAA tournament with basketball, and now with college football. You have a team like Miami that gets in, no one thinks they should be in. Maybe that provides a little extra motivation to go on the road as an underdog and showcase what they can do.
Right. All these teams are such big powerhouse schools where they play their whole season as the big favorite.
Yes.
They're the overdog, and now you kind of get to see a couple of them embrace that underdog role for the first time and see where it takes them.
Well, we'll see how this game turns out, but I do want to let the record reflect that you called this. You weren't really a big believer in A&M last night as a 3.5-point home favorite over Miami because throughout the course of the season you hadn't really seen enough for them to know that they deserve to be a 3.5-point favorite against Miami.
Yeah, it seemed to me, they were playing their best football the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and I don't know, the last half of the year it seems like they're struggling to win games they should win. They've been huge favorites in some games where they're only covering this, or they're only winning by 3 or 7 points. So I don't know. I just haven't seen the same juice out of A&M the last half of the season.
All right, so here's the situation: 3rd down and 5 for Miami. A&M is now out of timeouts. So Miami, if they pick up the first down, they'll be able to run the clock down to basically 0 to kick a game-winning field goal. If they don't get the first down, they'll be able to run the clock down to just over a minute before they attempt a field goal to go up 6-3, which will give Texas A&M an opportunity to either tie or take the lead late in this football game. But let's dive into some of the action. Let's start with the Oregon Ducks. They're hosting James Madison. Kickoff is going to be at 4:30. And right now the latest line here at Spirit Mountain Casino, the Ducks minus 21. Now that's an adjustment down a half point. What's going on with the line and the movement?
Yeah, so, earlier in the week we were up at 21.5, and so was pretty much the whole country looking at things, and there has been this midweek adjustment down to 20.5 and back to 21 at most spots. For us here, it's always hard to gauge the Oregon games in terms of money in comparison with the rest of the country because we are so close to Eugene. And, this is Oregon country, so obviously we're extremely high on Oregon. We didn't have that influx of James Madison money come in that maybe some of these other sports books did. But nonetheless, there's obviously enough James Madison, coming in for sports books to make an adjustment.
Now, Justin, for some of the contacts that you communicate with throughout the course of the week around the country, what are their thoughts on this game and this line with the Ducks being favored at 21?
Yeah, it's one of those where it's almost kind of a newer, a new experience here because it is the college football playoff. It's only year 2 with the 12 teams, and you have what is considered, one of the legitimate national champion contenders playing kind of a team that even last week, watching the Duke-Virginia game, we weren't even sure James Madison was going to get in.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have this newer scenario where it is a playoff game, but it almost feels, like an NCAA tournament, like a 2 versus 15, a 3 versus 14 type of game. So, I mean, I haven't talked to anyone. Sorry, Duke fans out there. I haven't talked to anyone who thinks that James Madison Dukes are going to necessarily win this game.
Yeah.
But I have heard people who think they can cover the spread. So.
Yeah, good defensive team, mobile quarterback. I think they've got a chance to cover. So give us an example, because obviously, like you said, you're going to get an inordinate number of duck bets because we're in Oregon duck country, obviously. So how many James Madison bets have you taken over the course of the last couple of weeks?
Yeah,
very few?
Very, very few.
What's the percentage of money on the Ducks what's the split with the Ducks and James Madison?
So for the ticket count, the tickets are about 93 to 7%. and the money's even more lopsided than that.
It's hugely lopsided.
Yeah.
Now, are the majority of those on the side, or are they tied into like parlays?
Actually, so Oregon, we've seen a ton of straight bets on, as well as throwing them in with a bunch of parlays. The James Madison bets have mostly been in parlay form, tied to other things going on this weekend, which makes sense because I don't necessarily think we're taking any money from true James Madison fans. It might just be people who have a hunch here and there,
see value in the
21. Value. So let's just add it into our weekly parlay portfolio type thing.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, which is more important to you, James Madison covering this number here, or Oregon eventually getting knocked out because of all the money that's tied into future bets to win the college football playoff?
Right. It's a tough question. I mean, when these games, as we get closer to kickoff, they do get quite lopsided. It's not going to get close to what the future amount would necessarily be. But hypothetically speaking, if Oregon were to, say they played in they can play in a total of 4 playoff games. If they did happen to play in 4 and happen to cover the spread in all 4, that would probably be a worst case scenario than just
win the title
outright.
And cover the spread.
Right, exactly.
Because you're going to get it as the Ducks advance. You'll continue to get heavy money on Oregon at the line.
Right. Everyone already has their future ticket, so now it's let's hit each of the daily games as well.
Okay, so what does your gut tell you about this game? Do you think the Ducks cover the number? I mean, what's your read on it?
It's tough. I think it's a great number. I could see so many scenarios or arguments you can make for both teams covering it. My one thing that we were kind of talking about is, during the regular season, you find so many of these games where it seems like Dan Lanning almost is trying to run it up a little bit on the other team. It might be because, Mike Gundy's running his mouth, early in the week, or this or that in the other scene. But there isn't that incentive. You don't have that incentive to win by 30, to win by 40 in the playoffs. You know who your next team is that you're playing. You know where it is. There's no added benefit, I guess, to winning, by 7 or by 37. So I don't know. I think James Madison will be fired up. This might possibly be, the only time in their program history they're in a spot like this. That being said, though, does Oregon take their foot off the gas? I think it's a good number. I could see it going either way.
All right, quick update on the college football playoff game. Miami scored a touchdown. They're up 10-3, and we have just over a minute remaining, but A&M just got a personal foul, roughing the passer penalty, which takes them across midfield into plus territory at the Miami 48-yard line with 90 seconds remaining. They have no timeouts. We'll keep you up to date on that action. Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager for Spirit Mountain Casino, is here. Now, obviously it's different maybe early in the season, but now that we're here at the end of the year into the college football playoff, do the books have a better read and can set better numbers like you're talking about with James Madison and Oregon? Do you think the books are sharper in terms of being able to set a number for these games?
Yeah, I think so. Another thing you just see this time of year is when the line does open, you're not seeing these crazy 4 and 5 point swings throughout the week. When a line moves at this time of year, oftentimes it's maybe half a point or a full point at most. And I think it's just, that you have the whole season's, worth of information. You have betting trends at this point. And I think it is easier. The other nice thing is, on a normal Saturday, books have to contend with 60, 70, 80 games going on.
Yeah.
So when there's, 3, 4, 5 games, it's also a lot easier, I think, to kind of hone in on those games.
Now, how much input do you have? Because obviously the lines are set by MGM for you guys. How much input do you have when you have an Oregon game where you're going to get, more action on one side to be able to adjust the number?
I mean, we have the ability to adjust it, and there has been times since we've been open where Oregon's been 2-3 points off of what the consensus line is around the country. We haven't really moved it much this year, to be honest. It depends on a lot of factors too. Is the line around a key number? How much Oregon money is coming in? Because we have some Oregon games where we're maybe only getting 60, 70% of the action in comparison, and then you're not as necessarily inclined to react quickly and do something drastic with the line. But then there's other games, where you might end up moving it 2-3 points just because you're getting overflowed, or you're thinking about the future liability again and how that could affect it, and you might want to just try to do something to offset that potential loss down the road.
All right, Justin Ballinger is with us. The other game today will be Tulane and Mississippi, 12:30 kick. Right now, the latest line here at Spirit Mountain Casino is a 17-point favorite. Ole Miss is the favorite. What's your read on this, and what's the line movement done throughout the course of the week?
Yeah, this is very similar to the Oregon game. It opened at 16.5. It went up to 17.5, and now it's come back down that half point and kind of settled at 17. And really, I mean, we're high on Mississippi. It's not quite the same as high as we are in Oregon, but it's clearly Mississippi being favored about 80% here in terms of the money, and about 85% in terms of how many bets we've seen. There have been a lot of Oregon-Mississippi teasers and parlays that we've seen today come in as well.
Not surprising, because you have two group of 5 schools, right?
Right, and I think that's why, you have the big schools who have the money, who've been there and done that, and then, they're playing. We got Tulane and James Madison, kind of the wild cards of this whole equation.
That's pretty awesome. All right, Justin Ballinger is with us. Now, I saw this line. I didn't know it. I didn't check it last night, but right now we've got the semifinal game, or the quarterfinal game, with Alabama and Indiana. How about the Hoosiers being a 7.5-point favorite over Alabama?
Yeah, with the hook and everything.
That seems crazy.
And that'll be a fun one to watch because it is right on that key number with the hook, and we still have 10 days till the game. So I think that's one, that line could really be driven based on the money that comes in, just because it is right on that key number there.
What's your early read on that? Is that fair, or is that a little bit inflated based on the recent success of Indiana?
It seemed to me a little inflated after watching Alabama last night.
Yeah.
They started clicking. They looked fantastic, and can someone beat them by a touchdown? Right? I know is the thought, but you got to remember recency bias. You know, you watch something happen, and your brain immediately jumps to a new conclusion that it might have not had before. But
so when you see a number like that, Indiana minus 7.5 over Alabama, are you anticipating a lot of Alabama action with that type of number? Because people look at that and think, hey, I respect Indiana, but geez, 7.5 over Bama?
Exactly. Yeah, I expect people to see, I get Alabama and they can lose by a touchdown, type thing. Whereas when I see a line like that, I tell myself, okay, so the sports books were okay with just straight up going to 7.5. They're not necessarily as worried about that Bama money on the 7. So this could end up being one of those games where it's sharp bettors versus the public.
Well, we talked about the success of the home teams with last year's first round games. The other trend to keep an eye on is every team that had a bye last year did not perform well in those quarterfinal games. So we'll see how the bye plays out for teams like Indiana, Ohio State, Texas Tech, and the rest.
Right, absolutely. And Indiana, they're all going to be tough. But it's like, how about being Texas Tech, for example? And I know Oregon was kind of in this boat last year where they had the bye, and then it's like, here you go, here's Ohio State for you. But it's, Texas Tech potentially getting a team like Oregon, off a bye, not resting all that time, and just ooh.
Do you have an idea? And by the way, update. A&M got down inside the 5-yard line. They just got picked off. Miami is going to win and advance, which is pretty amazing. Good call by Justin Ballinger, as Miami is going to be able to kneel out and run out the clock, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, hey, someone we needed to see a touchdown, right? First team to score a touchdown ends up taking it. So
that's pretty awesome. Justin Ballinger is with us as we are, getting ready for the Oregon game, which is coming up at 4:30. These games are great. All right, so Alabama, Indiana. So that line right now, 7.5. The Hoosiers are favored. Pretty impressive. Do you have a lot of money on Indiana to win the championship?
No, actually, Indiana is one of our. I'm pulling for them a little bit.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
They're 3-1. I can't believe. Did you ever think we'd see in our lifetime Indiana being 3-1 to win the college football national championship?
They have a Heisman Trophy winner. It's
what
pretty
the world's
remarkable.
going on?
Right, exactly.
And just by the way, I mentioned this earlier on the show before you came on, but 122,000 people on hand to watch this football game today.
Crazy.
Is that crazy?
That's insane.
Okay, let's dive into some of these NFL games. I love the two games tonight. You've got the Eagles and Commanders. You've got the Packers and Bears, and it looks like we could have, possibly the public going one direction in both these games. We'll start with the Eagles and Commanders. My basic read on this is that the Eagles could be one of the biggest public plays of the weekend, and the Commanders, I think you're getting good value at 7 points at home tonight as a home dog. What's your read here, and what's the money doing in the Eagles and Commanders?
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all, the money, the Eagles were over 90% of the money that's come in. There hasn't been very many Commanders bets at all. And I think, again, we just talked about recency bias, but, before last week, you had the Eagles kind of almost plodding through their schedule, pulling out kind of gross wins.
Yeah.
They had that bad Chargers loss. They weren't putting up, and then they beat the Raiders 31-0, who I'm not certain they're even trying anymore.
Yes.
The Raiders. So there was, the Eagles are back, and I'm not necessarily so sure. It's a divisional game. It's a lot
I'm with you 100%.
Points,
you can shut out the Raiders. That's not a get right game. I'm sorry.
No, 50-0, 10-0. It's the same thing with the Raiders.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is a lot of points. It's at home for Washington. Washington, they looked pretty good last week.
They did.
Beating the Giants, another divisional game. So I think that with the point spread at least, there's a play there potentially.
Okay, what's going on with the Packers and Bears? It's surprising to me to see the Packers as an underdog, but they're coming off the loss to Denver. They lost Micah Parsons. Christian Watson is down. Do you think this is an overreaction based on the recency bias of the Denver game and the injuries suffered by the Packers?
I'm not sure. I think it's tough because these teams did just play 2 weeks ago also. So I think what we have here is 2 weeks of information kind of being gathered into one here. I mean, Chicago is at home, but I do think the biggest thing driving this line are those injuries. I mean,
Yes.
The Micah Parsons one is just demoralizing.
Demoralizing.
For a team like that. And I know, like you touched on, Christian Watson, Josh Jacobs might not play. I think it's going to be such a different Packers team than what we saw 2 weeks ago. Whereas the Bears, it's kind of the same team, and now they get to be at home.
Yeah.
We'll see though. We are getting a ton of Bears action. However, once the spread moved to -1 for Chicago on Thursday, it hasn't moved since.
Oh.
So despite the money coming out of Chicago, the line's kind of settled in at 1 for the Bears there.
Okay, so another game. Bills right now laying 10.5 on the road against the Browns. Now, the Browns throughout the years, have been a very good home dog because their defense is terrific. I don't know if I can trust their offense to keep it within 10.5, but Buffalo's in a very weird sandwich spot because they're coming off a come-from-behind victory, down 21. They beat the Patriots on the road, huge game. Next weekend, they're going to play Philadelphia, but they've got to face the Browns as a 10.5-point road favorite. So I just wonder if you might be catching the Bills in one of those tough scheduling spots where maybe the Browns might be a good value because the public is going to probably lean Buffalo in this situation.
Yeah, the public is definitely going to lean Buffalo. I mean, I can tell you right now we have 66 Bills bets to 4 Browns bets, so if that tells you much. But
that tells me everything.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Bills every year they seem to have 4 or 5 of those games where they'll play the Jets, they'll play the Dolphins, they'll play the Browns, and they'll win like 19-13,
Yes.
16-10 or something. It's just where did that come from?
Yes.
And it's almost
like this year they lose at the Falcons or at the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Dolphins one was really bad, if I'm not mistaken.
7.5-point favorite, and they lose by I think double digits.
Double digits, yeah. So I don't know. The Bills, obviously, they've been looking better coming in, and the Browns, are great at home. But yeah, can the Browns score enough to, how many points do the Bills need to score to cover 10.5? Right?
Yes,
17?
especially
Is it 20?
in the conditions outdoors. Like, I think the Browns might be a good play there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the game that we are most interested in is this Sunday night football game, Patriots and Ravens. Right now, the Ravens are -3. I haven't seen anyone that thinks that Ravens are going to win that football game, but I wonder now with the Patriots, you get them coming off a brutal loss to Buffalo, and they had that double-digit winning streak going 10-plus games. I wonder if they exhale now, and this is a spot where they're going to show up flat and get worked. And the interesting part is that this is one of those sides where you have a public dog, and you've got all the money coming in on one side. What's the latest with the Patriots and the Ravens?
Yeah, Patriots. We have about double the amount of bets on the Patriots that we do the Ravens right now.
Love that.
Yeah, money's in a similar situation there, and we actually opened at 2.5. And so this has moved up to Baltimore -3 despite the money coming in on New England. And, a lot of times that's can be very telling.
All right, so keep an eye on that game. Are you getting a lot of futures on the Seahawks now?
Oh, yeah, Seahawks and Niners all year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a big Seahawks country and 49er fans up here, too.
Yeah.
Anything else on the NFL card that jumps out at you as interesting?
I'm excited for your team to play that Jags-Broncos game. I think that could be a really good one, especially with the spread at 3.5 for Denver. Two division leaders who need to win.
What's the money doing here on that game?
Right now, we are high on Denver, about 2-1 in terms of bets and about 4-1 in terms of money.
Yeah.
Again, though, it's hard. You got to always remember Bo Nix and, Oregon and where we're located. So, there is always that kind of lean towards Chargers with Herbert, Broncos with Bo Nix. So that can drive it a little bit. Obviously, that's not all of the money that we're seeing here. And I still don't think people fully believe in Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. It seems like kind of like what we just talked about with the Bills, the Jags still find ways to have these weird duds in weird spots where it's like, I was just about to get on board, and then they go and do that. And
yeah, it's interesting that there are teams that are hard to get a read on sometimes, like the Patriots and the Jags, two of the best teams in turnover ratio by a mile in the NFL this year. So a lot of times when teams are thriving off the turnover, I wonder when that faucet runs dry,
right.
What else is going to come from that? But the Jags, they stopped the run, and Trevor Lawrence is finally starting to look like the guy that maybe we thought he would.
Finally is, yeah. It's at least you're seeing more of it and more consistently seeing it as well, rather than these just sporadic spots it pops up.
What I love about that game is both teams have big-time incentive to play well, because the Broncos are trying to get the 1 seed, and the Jaguars right now are trying to hold off the Texans for the division crown. So that the game means a ton to both teams.
Yep, big game for both teams. Yep.
All right, Justin Ballinger. All right, this is Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports, college football playoff, parlays, teasers, totals. You can do in-game betting on the kiosk machines. They've got prop bets, everything you could possibly want, NFL, college football, and anything else. Anything else you want to share with the people before you go?
You got 4 hours until the Ducks start.
Yes,
so,
4:30.
Yeah, get down here. We'll see you at 4:30.
And the great thing is plenty of open seating now, but, of course, this place is going to fill up nicely before the Ducks kick off.
Yeah, we're expecting a pretty nice crowd in here tonight. So,
well, as always, I appreciate your hospitality. I appreciate your information, and you're the man, Justin.
Thanks. You too, Chad. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Miami gets the win over A&M. They'll advance to play Ohio State. Alabama will face Indiana in the quarterfinals. I'm live from Spirit Mountain Casino for the college football playoff here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Chad Doing. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Just taking in the college football playoff. Right now, Ole Miss on top of Tulane, 7-0 with 11 minutes to play in the first quarter. And Miami has just upset Texas A&M down at Kyle Field, and they will advance now in the college football playoff, which is awesome. I'm loving the action. And Miami today got it done. You know, a lot of people didn't think they deserved to be in. A lot of people question whether Mario Cristobal could, make the good decisions and put his team in a position to win. They did it, and they move on. And credit to them because they went out after last year, and they got Carson back, and they really went to work on that defense, which has been dramatically improved. And today it wasn't pretty. The special teams were awful, but Miami's defense was terrific. They overcame a late turnover. They got the stop. They went down and got the touchdown. And they get the interception to seal it, which is pretty awesome. Now I want to bring in Brendan Slaughter, who is a gentleman who covers, college football recruiting with Beaver's Edge. But Brendan, I'm just curious, why do you think some of these big-time schools with big-time money struggle to find the right kicker to be more sound in special teams? Because a lot of these games in the playoff or tight games in conference will come down to one possession. What's up with that?
Chad Dewey, my brother, appreciate you. Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think you kind of have to look at, special teams over the years. It seems to me like, and I mentioned this to you before we got on air, kickers are kind of a different breed. I want to single out kickers specifically when we're talking special teams. And I think, the best kickers that we've seen, over the last few years, they're maybe a little bit weird, maybe a little psycho. I think a kicker has to have a certain mentality, especially to be able to have, the big moment mentality to hit those kicks, not just in the regular season, but in the postseason when it actually matters. And I think, for example, this kid from Miami, right? Or even going back to the Bama game last night, kickers that have been really reliable all year, don't show up. And I think it comes down to the few special teams coaches that can actually get in the head of a kicker, which I think is a challenge. Like I said, I think kickers are unique breeds, Chad.
Yeah, no question about it. Kenny Dillingham, and we're going to hear from him coming up on the show. ASU got it done. Kenny Dillingham has signed a new contract with Arizona State, which will average $7.5 million over the course of the deal. But the key here is the staff salary pool is now up to $11 million, which puts them near the top of the Big 12. Kenny Dillingham is my favorite coach in college football. I adore him. Did a great job as offensive coordinator at Oregon, working with Bo Nix. Took over at his alma mater, and he's continuing to build that program. And more importantly, with his energy and his efforts, he's getting more people to support the program, and he's getting the support from the administration, which is necessary. And what I love about Kenny Dillingham is that in this wild, wild west of college football right now, there's a lot of things that are wrong. But Kenny Dillingham is an example of everything that is right about college athletics and college football right now. I just think he is a terrific young coach. I think he's got the right attitude, the right approach, and I love how he supports the athletes with the way that he will promote them, the way that he will help them, get to a different spot if they want to enter the portal. He wants guys that want to be there with his program and be Sun Devils. That's a huge win for the program to keep Kenny Dillingham locked in. And, of course, with Michigan out there floating around, and the good thing is, like we talked about before, I know Duck fans get irritated when people come sniffing around Dan Lanning, but it is a good thing when you have a coach that is desired by everybody else in the country. If your coach is someone that's going to be seeked after every season, that's a good thing. That means you got the right guy who's doing a good job, and you've got to continue to support him so that he doesn't look elsewhere. And Kenny Dillingham is just a terrific young coach who's doing a heck of a job. And the good thing is with his work that he's done with quarterbacks, with Bo Nix, he's got a track record of success. We see what he did with Sam Levitt, who's now going to be able to move on in the portal and put himself in a great position. I just love young coaches like this who aren't married to the old school train of thought, but look at the situation for how it is. They innovate, they embrace, and they move forward. And Dan Lanning's done a terrific job of that at Oregon. He's not fighting the system and how everything's changing around us in college football. He's embracing it and doing everything he can to be the best. And that is exactly what it's all about. So I'm a big fan of that. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I'm Chad Doing. I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino for the College Football Playoff. I am on air up until 3 o'clock, and then I'm going to cruise back to Moda Center for the Blazers and Kings. Brendan Slaughter is with me, and I'm going to have some goodies to give away around 2:45. So when you get down here, come see me, and the Ducks will kick off at 4:30. Right now here at Spirit Mountain Casino, Oregon is a 21-point favorite over James Madison. Parlays, teasers, totals, side bets, in-game betting on the kiosk. Everything you want is in one spot, and that is the Spirit Mountain Casino BetMGM Sportsbook. We'll come back. We're going to hear from Joe DeLeon, talking football with him, college football and draft expert. And we're going to hear from Kenny Dillingham coming up next, my favorite coach in college football right now. All right, Rip City Drive special edition. I'm at Spirit Mountain Casino for the college football playoff, and right now Ole Miss is lighting up Tulane. They've been one of the most impressive college football teams I've seen throughout the course of the year. Speaking of college football, so Kenny Dillingham's got a brand new deal. He has secured $7.5 million per year, and he got his assistant pull up to $11 million, which is now near the tops of the conference. So great job by Graham Rossini, the AD, and the administration to get Kenny Dillingham locked in, because this guy, look at what he's done in 2 years. He took over. They were a disaster with 3 wins. The second year, they went to the college football playoff and had a Heisman candidate in Cam Scatteraboo, who is a stud. You have a great young quarterback in Sam Levitt from West Lynn. And in the third year, with injuries that decimated the squad, he was still in a position to potentially win the conference going into the last game of the year against Arizona. And with a win in the Sun Bowl, he'd have 9 wins. So you would go double-digit wins into a 9-win season. Great work by Kenny Dillingham. But I love him because his attitude and approach and the way he does everything, I just think that he's perfect. He's everything you want in a coach. And so I want you to take a listen to this. This is him talking about the new deal, but more importantly, he is trying to drum up support for the program. I mean, this is what it's all about right here. Kenny Dillingham being a boss at the mic.
So we need to find one of these really rich people in this city to step up and stroke a check, and I'll do everything I can to make you the most famous person in the city, right? That's really what we need. We need one person. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. You're telling me there's not one person who could stroke a $20 million check right now? There is somebody out here who can. There's somebody who can. There's somebody. And, like, other people are going to sacrifice to be here. Somebody step up and be that dude to say, holy cow, what completely changed it? This person. There's somebody out there that's going to listen to this, that's going to get it forwarded it. If you know somebody who can do it, forward this message to somebody. Somebody can step up and completely take this place from the direction it's going to holy cow. And it's right here in the city.
Amazing. Someone can take this program right now from where it's going to holy cow. Now, this is an example of what is right about college football and what is wrong about college football. Like, it's totally insane that a head coach of a program has to go out and basically beg for money, but that's where we're at right now because you need big-time money to be able to compete at the top. But Kenny Dillingham is an example of what is right. Now, in addition to that, he also put out a memo alert to 2 professional golfers who are ASU Sun Devils, John Rahm and Phil Mickelson. And both those guys have a lot of money, probably stuffed away in their couch that could help support the program. But it's insane that college football coaches now have to go to basically fundraise at all times. And this is why, and this is an example of why the old guard, the older coaches, a lot of them are retiring. A lot of them want to get out of the game. They don't want any part of this because they grew up in a day and age where they recruited, they didn't pay athletes, they handed out scholarships, they revoked scholarships, they did it their way or the highway. That's how they operated. And now all of a sudden with the NIL and the need for money to be able to pay players, a lot of these older guys, they don't want any part of it because they don't adapt well, they don't adjust, they don't change. That's not the way we used to do things. They're old crusty dudes. But a guy like Kenny Dillingham, who's younger, can relate better to the players, understands the new day and age of college football, that whether you like it or not, this is the direction it's going. And until we have more guardrails or a system in place, it is an arms race, and you've got to be able to get your hands on cash. Now, he ain't lying. You know that Arizona is a hotbed for rich people. Why? I can guess based off of my time being down there. One, old people with a lot of money like to be in the sunshine and warm weather. Now, they might come up to the Northwest for the summertime because they don't want to do triple digits in like June, July, August. But a lot of old people with a lot of money hanging out down in the valley because most of the year the weather is spectacular. Also, there tends to be, my guess, and again, this is just me working off my eye, per capita, I would say that there's more beautiful women with fake racks in the Phoenix area than anywhere else in the country. And old guys with a lot of money love hot chicks with fake racks. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. And not only that, you have so many other people, and you have an area that's big on industry. You've got a lot of successful businesses down there. You've got people all over, athletes, a lot of ex-athletes, basketball, football, whatever. They retired at Arizona. So Kenny Dillingham is smart to just go out and say, look, I need cash right now. And you know there's somebody down here in the Valley that can stroke us a $20 million check. And, oh, by the way, I'll help make you the most famous person in the Valley. I freaking love that. And if I had ridiculous money like that, where I could just spend wildly, I would stroke a check to ASU, and then I would demand that Kenny Dillingham make me the most famous Sun Devil person of all time. I love the program in the area. It's beautiful down there. But this is where we're at in college football. You have to come out and basically say, look, we need money to be able to compete if we want to win a championship. Like Oregon's got that. They have the support. They've got the money. They're focused on winning, and they'll do whatever it takes. But that's really what it's all about. And that's going to be the difficult part for a team like James Madison, playing at Autzen today. They don't have the 5-star talent. They don't have the 3-star talent. They don't have the money to be able to pay big-time quarterbacks. And that's the bottom line. The one thing I do love about the NIL is it's helped spread out some of the big-time talent across the country to where now you can be a big-time quarterback, and instead of being stuck on the depth chart at, I don't know, take your pick, Ohio State or Nebraska or wherever you might be, you can go elsewhere, get a guarantee to play, and be able to make some money along the way, which is pretty awesome. And now with the way the NIL works and the way you can jump into the portal after the season, it gives an opportunity for quarterbacks who might need to revive their draft stock, who may be on a team that's going to lose a lot of players. You can go elsewhere and put yourself in a better position to continue to move forward. Like Carson Beck, look at what he's doing right now. He was at Georgia, got hurt. Things didn't end well. His draft stock took a dive. He went to Miami, and now he just won a playoff game, and he's going to advance into the quarterfinals. He's reviving his image, and it's going to put him in a position to do better in the draft. Bo Nix, he was considered a disaster at Auburn. And everyone that we talked to when he made the move to Oregon didn't see it. They didn't like the move. They thought Oregon was crazy to take on Bo Nix. And in 2 years, he was dynamite, revived his draft stock, first-round pick, and now he's killing it for the Denver Broncos. Take Sam Leavitt, for example. Kenny Dillingham plucked him out of Michigan State. He took ASU to the playoff. And now, after a second year at ASU, foot injury, and ASU has just graduated a ton of players, guys who are going to go into the draft, guys who are done. The team's going to be a little bit different, younger next year. So Leavitt can sit back and look at Indiana or Miami or take your pick, Oregon, and be able to decide what he wants to do and put himself in a better position to revive his draft stock coming off the foot injury this year at ASU. Dante Moore. Went to Oregon, then jumped to UCLA. Now he's back at Oregon, sat for a year, and now he's going to be one of the top picks taken in the draft. Or he can go back to Oregon and make a ton of cash and then re-enter the draft. I mean, if he's going to be one of the first or two quarterbacks taken, I don't see how you can say no to that, but I'd love to see him go back to Oregon for another year because he's great, and I love watching him play, and he makes the Ducks a dynamic football team. And if you're Oregon, the great thing is if Moore decides to jump into the draft, no problem. You've got the reputation, you've got the facilities, you've got the coaching, you've got the money. You can go out and grab Sam Leavitt or DJ Lagaway or whoever you want in the portal and bring in another quarterback. For these big-time schools with money, you're in such a great position now because you don't have to groom and, kind of work with a young quarterback. You can allow the young guys to sit and learn and dip into the portal to make sure you continue to have experience at that position. And then when that young guy on the bench is ready to step in and play, you can play him. It's pretty awesome. But Kenny Dillingham, I just love the guy so much. I just think the energy and the effort and the willingness he is to put himself out there is amazing. But that's what it's all about. You need this type of guy in college football. Kenny Dillingham's a stud.
We need to find one of these really rich people in this city to step up and stroke a check, and I'll do everything I can to make you the most famous person in the city, right? That's really what we need. We need one person. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. You're telling me there's not one person who could stroke a $20 million check right now? There is somebody out here who can. There's somebody who can. There's somebody. And, other people are going to sacrifice to be here. Somebody step up, and be that dude to say, holy cow, What completely changed it? This person. There's somebody out there that's going to listen to this, that's going to get it forwarded it. If you know somebody who can do it, forward this message to somebody. Somebody can step up and completely take this place from the direction it's going to holy cow. And it's
Gosh, I love that so much. Take this from where it's going to holy cow. All right, I just did a quick, I consorted with Rabbi Google. I was looking for some information. And in the greater Phoenix area, according to the data I have, here's what it says in Google. Scottsdale and the Phoenix area is a magnet for wealth, with estimates placing around 14,800 millionaires in the Scottsdale Paradise Valley area alone, and approximately 1,113 millionaire households in the broader Phoenix metro area. This reflects significant growth, with some reports noting a massive surge in high-earner households in the valley. Well, there you have it. He ain't lying. There's somebody out there bumping around the valley right now that can stroke, quote, a $20 million check. It's amazing to me. I love that so much. Yeah, that will happen. Sunshine, beautiful women, a tax haven. There's a lot of rich old dudes down there. They got money just popping out of their pockets right now. Love that so much. Yeah, Scottsdale's like, that's my favorite place. Like, I've been to parts of San Diego, but like if I was going to pick my haven, I'm going to Scottsdale. I've got the condo and everything picked out. I just love the area. I love golf. The idea of being able to play golf 365 with no interruptions is a beautiful thing. Like, I love the Northwest. It's beautiful. But the problem is, once October hits, you screwed, man. Hey, you want to play golf today? No. I checked the forecast. We have nothing but 14 straight days of rain and clouds. Hey-o! The only thing those blue hairs down in the valley have to worry about is investing their money, making sure they're getting a return in the market, and making sure they tee off at 4:30 in the morning in July so they don't burn their grills up. That's all. I mean, that's all. That's all you have to worry about down there. And making sure your wife is not cheating on you or spending all of your money. It is what it is. But Kenny Dillingham's awesome. All right, Miami got the win over Texas A&M. Hideous football game, but Miami made the big plays when they had to. Got a late touchdown drive and got a defensive pick in the end zone to seal the victory. A&M goes down in flames, and the Hurricanes move on. And the Ducks will take on James Madison, kickoff at 4:30. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino. This is where you need to be to watch college football and the college football playoff, because you can bet on everything, including the Ducks. Parlays, teasers, totals, prop bets, in-game betting on the kiosk machines, cushy chairs. You've got the stadium bar, 10 Barrel Brewing, everything in one place. And the best part is, if you sneak away and come down here, you don't have someone in your ear telling you they need to go Christmas shopping or that you have a honey-do list. You don't want that. I know what you want. I am you. You want college football, and you want to be able to sit and watch in peace. So get your tail down here and join me. I'm going to be on air until 3. I've got giveaways that I'm going to be handing out at 2:45, so come see me when you get down here. This is your place to bet on college sports, Spirit Mountain Casino, and you're listening to your home of the Portland Trailblazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino getting ready for college football playoff, my friends. You got to love it. Oregon Ducks are coming up at 4:30, and right now here at Spirit Mountain Casino, I'm currently looking at the college football playoff line. So currently here at Spirit Mountain Casino, the Ducks are a 21-point favorite. It was 21.5 down to 21. Mississippi going into the game at kickoff was a 17-point favorite, and A&M was a 3-point favorite, and Miami got the outright victory there. And last night we had another road victory. Bama getting about 1.5 going into the game. Got down 17-0, scored 27 unanswered, ends up winning the game by 10. And the interesting part here, two trends or two possible trends to keep an eye on. One, last year, all home teams won the opening round games. And so far in the playoff games that we've seen this year, both road teams have won, Bama and Miami. And right now, Ole Miss has got a 14-3 lead on Tulane with 14:06 to play in the first half. They're favored by 17. The other trend to keep an eye on is that if you remember, none of the teams that got the bye last year did well in their first game. So I want to see how these teams like, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas Tech, and the rest of that crew, how do they do? Georgia, with the extra time. Do they come out rusty? Will they come out rested and play well? We got to wait and see. But 1 year, you need more than just 1 year to be able to know if something's a trend or not. But so far, the road team's doing very well in the college football playoff. And credit to Mario Cristobal. It's easy to clown on him. I think we like to make fun of him, here in Oregon. But the reality is that, he's a good program builder. And, there are a couple of people that deserve credit that no one wants to give credit to. But I think when you look at what Mario Cristobal did at Oregon, with his recruiting, his emphasis on the line of scrimmage, and what he was able to do with the type of athlete he was bringing in, Dan Lanning's able to step in and really continue that trend, which is terrific. And Cristobal is great at building an offensive line. I mean, just look at what he's done with Miami this year. They've been great at the line of scrimmage. They've been terrific at running the ball on the interior. And defensively, they made a significant improvement. Now, the biggest problem for Mario, it's not recruiting or being able to find talent or build an offensive line. It's been, I think, the biggest knock on Mario is the decision-making between the white lines in that 60 minutes that you're playing a football game. Not getting in the way of success and making bad decisions. And, coaches, there are a lot of them around the country. Not just, players sometimes will make mistakes or turn it over or make a bad decision. Coaches are violators at all times. I watch guys in the NFL every weekend like Sean Payton have no clue of when they should go for two or not to go for two. Like, they don't have an analytics guy. They're just shooting from the hip. It's like, what are you doing, Sean? This guy's supposed to be a genius. So Mario Cristobal is getting better. And we're seeing that with the Miami Hurricanes right now. Same thing with Dan Lanning, right? We saw him early in his time at Oregon, make some decisions that might have been questionable, especially in some of the big games against Washington. But you live and you learn, and you hopefully take those experiences, those situations, and you get better from it. That's really what it's all about. You've got to continue to improve. You got to make good decisions. You've got to really do an inventory every year. And I know Kenny Dillingham does it. There are a lot of coaches that do it, but they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb after the season at decision-making, situational football. They just do an overhaul and take a look at everything because they want to continue to improve and get better. So really looking forward to what we have. The current odds to win the college football playoff, if you're curious, Alabama right now 15-1. And they're getting 7.5 points in this game against Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Indiana opened as a 7.5-point favorite. So Bama's at 15-1 to win the title. Georgia right now 5-1. Indiana 3-1. Miami you can get pretty good odds on at 22-1. James Madison and Tulane at 500-1. Absolute long shots. Ohio State's the favorite at plus 225. Ole Miss 25-1. Oregon and Texas Tech, pretty good odds for two good teams. Oregon right now 8-1, and Texas Tech is 9-1. Now, when I talked to Justin earlier in the show, they have an inordinate number of bets on the Ducks because they're positioned here in Oregon. They're going to take a lot of Duck action. So a lot of money's poured in on the Ducks for this game against James Madison on the spread. Also tied in, he said, a number of bets on a teaser situation with both Ole Miss and Oregon. And he said that, today's game, obviously they would like to see James Madison cover the spread because the sportsbook would do well. But his biggest concern would be a combination of factors, including Oregon winning and covering on the way to the national championship and then winning the title. And that's because they have a ton of future bets on the Ducks to win the title here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Very interesting. In the NFL action, we got 2 games coming up today. First one's going to kick off here in about 30 minutes. Eagles at the Commanders. Right now, here at Spirit Mountain, the Eagles are a 7-point road favorite against the Commanders. I think the Eagles are one of the biggest public plays in the NFL this weekend. Justin likes the Commanders in that spot. Harder to get a read on the Packers and Bears, although there's been a number of early Bear action. But once the line flipped to the Bears being a 1.5-point favorite, there's been some money to come back on the Packers. The Bears right now sit as a 1-point favorite as they get ready for the game tonight. Games tomorrow on Sunday. The Bills right now laying 10.5 at the Browns. I think there's good value in the Browns here with their defense. They're playing at home. They'll be in the elements, but the Bills right now in a very difficult scheduling spot because they're coming off the road win against New England. A lot of emotion. Down 21. They win it 35-31. But also next weekend they've got a monster game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's kind of a sandwich spot where you're coming off a massive road win against the Patriots. Now you're on the road as a double-digit favorite against the Browns, and you got the Eagles coming up next week. Could be a good spot to jump on the Browns. The big question is with Cleveland, or the concern would be, can they get enough from their offense to be able to, cover that 10.5 points? Shedeur Sanders has played well, but last week 3 picks in the loss to Chicago. Other games to keep an eye on. Right now, the Saints, I need someone to explain this to me. So they went outright as a home dog to the Panthers last week, and all of a sudden they're laying 6.5 in the Dome against the Jets. That seems a little bit bizarre. Another big public play this weekend are the Vikings, who have played better over the last couple of weeks. They're laying 2.5 at the Giants. This game here is huge. Bucks are a 3-point favorite at the Panthers. And, of course, the Bucks and Panthers play twice over the final 3 weeks, and those 2 games will determine the NFC South division crown. One team will go to the playoffs from that division. It'll be the Bucks or the Panthers. Another big public play this week, the Chargers. A lot of people jumping on that. The Cowboys right now favored by 2 down in Big D, but the Chargers, interesting scheduling spot here where, you're coming off an emotional win on Monday night in overtime to the Eagles. And then you follow it up with an outright dog win at Kansas City, and now you've got an out-of-conference game in Dallas, and they're a short favorite. It could be a good spot, or a short dog at 2 points. Could be a good spot to jump on the Cowboys in this one. Bengals at the Dolphins. All I know is the Dolphins are trash, and they're starting Quinn Ewers, a rookie at quarterback, against Joe Burrow, who's coming off a miserable performance. I like Cincinnati in that spot. Other games, the Jags and the Broncos. Right now, Denver here at Spirit Mountain, a 3.5-point favorite. Both teams have a lot to play for. The Broncos are trying to secure the number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Jaguars right now trying to hold off the Houston Texans. Outside of Denver, the Jags and Texans are the 2 hottest teams in football. Another game to keep an eye on, Raiders getting shut out, getting 14 on the road at Houston. Now, the Raiders are a bad football team, but traditionally, it's been a very good spot to play a team after they've been shut out, especially when you're getting 2 touchdowns on the road. And then the most interesting game, last week it was New Orleans and Carolina. And this is a very similar spot. And this is the one that I want to highlight for you that we talked about with Justin. So the Ravens right now on Sunday Night Football are laying 3 points. They're a 3-point favorite here at Spirit Mountain Casino against the Patriots. So last week you had the Panthers playing at the Saints. And the Panthers had everything to play for on the road against the Saints because they're in contention with Tampa Bay for the division crown and a chance to qualify for the postseason. So all the bets, in fact, Justin told me he only took 1 bet, and it was tied into a parlay on the Saints the entire week. But the interesting part here is that all the money was coming in on Carolina, and yet they did not adjust the line. It stayed at 2.5. the entire week. Well, we have a similar situation here on Sunday Night Football where you have the Ravens laying 3 against the Patriots. And the money is coming in on the Patriots. Heavy money's coming in on New England, and I haven't seen anybody that thinks the Ravens are going to win that football game. They haven't played great football of late, but you've got one side all on the Patriots and the Ravens laying the points at home. But the weird part is, even with all the money flying in on the Patriots, they have not adjusted that line from 3. It's still sitting at 3. So keep an eye on the Patriots and the Ravens as we enter into NFL Sunday and get ready for Sunday Night Football. I just think it's one of those interesting spots, and maybe you get a chance to align yourself with the books and not the public. But that's the latest card and ticket. But I do like Oregon at 8-1, Texas Tech at 9-1, 2 quality football teams. And I've thought about this a lot. I don't know if this is the best Oregon team of my lifetime, but I do believe that this is the best positioned Oregon team to win a national championship. And I just love the work that Dan Lanning has done. You know what he does a great job of? One, recruiting. He's terrific on the recruiting trail and convincing guys and finding guys that fit his program to come and play for him. And, of course, he's got the support of the facilities and the administration and the people to support the program, so he's got the money to be able to go out and acquire, big-time talent. But what I love about what Lanning has done is when they get guys up front, offensive and defensive lines, their ability to coach up throughout the course of the year and get those guys at a high level is very impressive to me. And I think based on line of scrimmage play, offensive and defensive lines, I think the Ducks this year are in their best position to go out and truly compete for a championship. And I just love, what they did up front on the offensive line with, the 2 tackles that came in World and Harkey. And, the way that those guys really hit the ground running and we're opening up, lanes in the run game. I mean, and providing protection, the physicality they showed in wins against Washington and Iowa or at Penn State. Great job up front, by both the offensive and defensive lines. And then now they're starting to get healthier at the skill position spots. I love the receiver group, love their tight ends. And then you got Dante Moore, who is a stud at quarterback. I just think Oregon right now is best positioned. Now, they're going to get a chance to take on Texas Tech, provided they get the win today. And I think that's going to be one heck of a football game. Texas Tech, like Oregon, spent big in the portal. They went out and acquired a defensive line group that's going to be, well, they've been terrific throughout the course of the year. They play great defense. They've got a good coach. You've got potentially a great football game. So the Ducks right now, they'll take on James Madison, advance to take on Texas Tech, and that could set up a potential matchup with either Indiana or Alabama in that Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in the semifinals. But think about that path. So for the Ducks, you take out James Madison, then you're going to have to play Texas Tech, then you're going to face a potential matchup with Bama or Indiana, and then you would go on to take on, potentially Ohio State in the national championship. Think about that path. Texas Tech, Indiana, Ohio State. Now, good luck. I mean, that's brutal. But what I'm saying is that because of their ability to compete up front and move guys out the line of scrimmage, I think they're best positioned to be able to do that, which is terrific. Right now, Montana State's up on Montana 13-0, and right now it's 14-3. Ole Miss on top of Tulane, and Tulane's got the football with 11 minutes to play in that first half. And in case you didn't know, Jake Retzloff, who was at BYU last year, has had a terrific season. He's the quarterback for Tulane this season. And he was terrific in that conference title game against North Texas. So there you have it. That's kind of my assessment on the lay of the land. But, I don't know. I love Indiana. I think they're terrific. I love their defense. I love Mendoza. And obviously they've got a sensational coach in Cignetti. The guy's a freak. But it's hard to say who's going to come out. I think Ohio State, just based on talent, they're going to be right there. But I prefer some of these other teams. Ohio State being young at the quarterback position, I kind of like some of these other teams that are in there right now because Bama's got more experience at quarterback. Georgia's got more experience at quarterback. Indiana's got the Heisman Trophy winner. Carson Beck's got a ton of starts and experience from Miami. Love the way Trinidad Chambliss has played throughout the year for Ole Miss. Dante Moore is terrific for Oregon. and then you've got experience with Morton at Texas Tech. There's just a lot of guys who have more experience. I do not think Ohio State's going to win the title. I know they're talented. I know they're well coached. I think they're a great program. I just don't. I would take, if I had my choice right now of Ohio State or the field, I'm going to take the field. But that's going to be one. I can't wait. That Texas Tech-Oregon game is going to be great. A physical battle. And what we saw this morning, high-scoring game with Oklahoma and Alabama, which was a surprise. And Oklahoma's got no one to blame but themselves. You're up 17-0. How did they blow that game? Issues with the kicking game, missing a field goal late, which would have made it a one-possession game. Issues with the punting game, which gave Alabama a short field, and then you throw a pick six. You can't make those type of mistakes against a team like Alabama and expect to win, because eventually it's going to come back and bite you. That's all. And again, don't blame James Madison or Tulane for being in the playoff. That's the way it was set up. It was set up to have a group of 5 representative, and they just happened to get 2 teams in. Blame the ACC. But I get tired of hearing Nick Saban and some of the other guys come out and complain about Tulane and, James Madison being in. That's the way it was set up. Now, would I prefer to see, better teams or the, 12 best teams? Yes. But right now, based on the way the system is set up, Tulane and James Madison earn their right to play. And I don't know if we're ever going to see a potential upset of one of these group of 5 schools in the first round advance and take out a big-time school. I doubt it. It's harder in football to pull off an upset because the talent level over the course of 60 minutes is going to shine through, especially at the line of scrimmage. But in college basketball, you can show up and drain threes and take out anybody. Also a big basketball game tomorrow. Oregon going to be taking on Gonzaga. Gonzaga 11-1 on the year right now. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Joe DeLeon, we're going to hear from him coming up at 2:20. You can reach out to me at 503-248-0620. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday afternoon. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. This is your place to bet on college sports. Oregon game will kick off at 4:30. We got cushy chairs. We've got parlays, teasers, totals, prop bets, and in-game betting on the kiosk machines. And I've got giveaways, goodies I'm going to hand out coming up at 2:45. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. I just saw this post on X. This is hilarious. And you married men out there will get a crack up out of this, but it's also 100% true. When a woman says 5 minutes, think like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and both teams have all of their timeouts. That is delicious. So good. Well, we had one playoff game in the books. Rough end of the season for Reed and Texas A&M, who fall to Miami 10-3 at home. And Miami scored a touchdown inside of 2 minutes. There was like about a $1:40 on the clock. And they had forced A&M to burn their timeouts. But Miami scored too quick. And so A&M was able, thanks to a personal foul, roughing the passer penalty, kind of helping them out on that drive. They got down inside the 5-yard line. Miami came up with a first down and second down stop and got the pick in the end zone on third down, and they win the game. And they did it with defense. And their defense has been really good this year, significantly improved group, and they've been able to, ride that. And what a value it is. I mean, good defense will travel anywhere, especially when you're on the road and you've got to find a way to get stops and you got to frustrate teams. And Miami's able to get it done. So they're going to advance. And Miami now is going to take on Ohio State. That's going to be a fun game. So we've got some early line action. Right now, Indiana is a 7.5-point favorite on Alabama. And Ohio State's a 9.5-point favorite over Miami. I mean, just on first take, and we'll see how things shake out over the next couple of weeks. One, I think Ohio State being a 9.5-point favorite against Miami that seems inflated. And the same thing with Indiana. Like, you're 7.5 points over Bama? You kidding me? On a neutral site? What are we doing? So we don't know. It's early. I'm just saying that right now, that's the early lines. Ohio State a 9.5-point favorite over Ohio State. Ohio State's a 9.5-point favorite over Miami. And you've got Indiana a 7.5-point favorite over Alabama. 4:46 to play in the first half in Oxford. Ole Miss a 14-3 lead on Tulane. And going into the game, the Rebs were a 17-point favorite against the Green Wave. So there you have it. And they're driving right now, have the ball at the 24-yard line, facing a 3rd down and 3. And they have been stopped. Tulane is showing that they're game today. So we'll see if Ole Miss elects to go for it or kick the field goal. But Tulane doing a pretty good showing right now. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. The Blazers are going to be in action tonight. And they've got back-to-back wins, looking to make it 3 in a row. They're going to be on the road in Sacramento against the hapless Kings right now. And the Blazers coming off that miracle victory where they were up by 17 with just over 3 minutes to play in the game a couple of nights ago. The Kings went on a 21-4 run to tie it up and go into overtime. And the Blazers down 1 with 4.4 seconds to play after a bucket from DeMar DeRozan. No shock, it was in the mid-range. And Denny Avdia gets off a shot at the buzzer, or actually a 1.5 because they replayed it. He was fouled. He made both free throws, and the Blazers escape with a miracle victory in a situation where they probably should have lost. But what I like about the last 2 victories at home, one, the Blazers, their legs look a lot more fresh because they've gotten better rest, after being out on the road. And, they played so many games over so few days over the first part of the season. And now you can see those legs are a little bit fresh. Now, they're going to start to get some guys back in the lineup here in the near future, which is going to be nice. But what I've noticed is Shaden Sharp, Jeremy Grant, and Denny Avdia, playing big minutes and looking really good. And I got to give credit to Donovan Clingan. He just continues to ball his backside off. And the funny thing is, all the attention this offseason was on young Hansen, because he was the surprise pick in the draft. He comes from China. He comes in with a lot of hype. And there's Donovan Clingan just quietly going about his business, playing his game, continuing to improve, showing better hands, great rim protection. He's been a sensational rebounder, especially on the offensive end. I just think Donovan Clingan's a great player. What a selection that was by the Blazers. They nabbed him, and he's turned out to be great. I love his attitude, his work ethic. He's a winner. He'll do whatever it takes to win. But, man, he's playing so well. And then the combo of him and Robert Williams III. And Williams, they're doing a good job of monitoring his minutes, making sure they control his workload, no second nights of a back-to-back. They just want to keep him healthy. And Robert Williams is a productive player. And he can put up production in points and rebounds in a very short period of time. But Donovan Clingan's balling out. What a find that was. He's playing really good basketball. Now, he struggled at the free throw line, missed 8 free throws. It nearly cost Portland the game the other night. But, that's just a blip. He was shooting 80% from the line going in, made 5 of 13 against the Kings. That's a problem. I think the Blazers missed 12 free throws in that game. I do not understand for the life of me how NBA players can be so pathetic sometimes at shooting the free throw. It's like, dude, you're a paid professional. Why do you suck at the line? Unbelievable to me. But the Blazers, getting great play from Clingan. Love him so much. Also, Chris Murray had a good, contribution off the bench. But the Blazers needed that rest because until they get Holiday and Thibault and Scoot back in that lineup, they're going to continue to be shorthanded with, a few guys playing larger minutes. Tamani Kamara quietly had a very good game before he fouled out. I think he had 17 points, 8 boards, and 5 assists. So the key guys that they need to play well right now are starting to play better, which is terrific. But, I really like what this group has done. I just like some of the, the character guys that this team has, the way they work. And I just can't wait until they get their guys back healthy so we can start to see, more of what they're about. Now, the injury report is out for tonight's game. Javante Cook's in the G League. Scoot Henderson's still out with the hamstring. Holiday, Thibault, Wesley, all out. And Jeremy Grant's now popped up on the injury report. He's questionable with left Achilles tendon soreness. I think I wake up every morning with like right and left Achilles soreness. But there you have it. Avdia, so far this year, has 22 games of 20 or more points this season, tied for third most such performances in the NBA since 25-26. But Avdia was money. 35 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, and 2 free throws at the end with 1.5 seconds remaining to win it. Avdia has been terrific. And like Clingan, wants to win. He's about winning. Great attitude, great approach. And he's shown a lot of physicality this year. But his playmaking, his aggressiveness, the way he attacks the paint, he's been great. And Jeremy Grant, too. I mean, the transformation we're seeing from Grant this year to where no mid-range, but either in the paint, at the teeth of the defense. We saw that monster dunk in the second half on Thursday, or shooting the three. But he's having his best season as a Trailblazer. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of things to be excited about for the Blazers as we continue to press forward. All right, we got one more hour to go. I got goodies to give away coming up at 2:45. People are starting to file in now as they get ready for the Ducks coming up at 4:30. We got NFL football coming up at 2 with the Eagles and the Commanders. And I'm Chad Doing. You're listening to Rip City Radio 620. We got the Trailblazer game coming up tonight. Tip-off with the Kings at 7. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 5. I'll have the network pregame show at 6. Right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Get down to Spirit Mountain Casino. This is your place to bet on college sports. The BetMGM Sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino. All right, Rip City Drive, special edition. I'm here at Spirit Mountain Casino, getting ready for the Oregon Ducks and James Madison. Ducks right now here at Spirit Mountain favored by 21. And if Oregon wins, they will advance to meet Texas Tech in the quarterfinals. So far, 2 games have gone final in the college football playoff. And 2 road teams, Alabama and Miami, have secured victories. So very interesting. 2 underdog wins on the road. And right now, Ole Miss has a 17-3 lead on Tulane with 44 seconds to play in the first half. So Ole Miss, of course, facing action without Lane Kiffin. But of all the teams I've seen, Ole Miss has been one of the more impressive teams throughout the course of the season. Big fan of their running back. Big fan of Trinidad Chambliss. And now Ole Miss once again in scoring position, potentially with 44 seconds to play in the first half. But, that's the challenge that some of these group of 5 schools have, is that when they, head out on the road and they got to face one of these big-time schools, just, position by position, the talent is squarely on one side. And that's what we're seeing right now. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We're going to hear from Joe DeLeon, college football and draft expert, coming up next. He's terrific to talk to. I want to get his take on Kirby Moore, the Washington State head football coach, and that disaster of an opening press conference. We'll get his take on that. I have no idea how you can make that mistake, saying that he's in the Mountain West Conference, the new Mountain West Conference, which actually is the Pac-12. It amazes me that someone in that position could make that mistake. Someone failed miserably there. Either he did or the people around him, but it's like you can't let him do that. You're trying to make a first impression and instill confidence in the players and the fan base, and he comes out and says Mountain West Conference. So Joe DeLeon going to come up. I'll be down here until 3, but this is going to be a great spot. If you're not going to Autzen, get down here to Spirit Mountain Casino. It's a great place to watch games. 18 screens. The big screen is 165 inches. They've got these awesome cushy chairs. It's Vegas-style setup here with the sports book. They've got the stadium bar right next to the chairs. 10 Barrel Brewing where you get some, nice grub and something to sip on. And then you have action if you want it. They have parlays, teasers, totals, sides, whatever you want. In-game betting on the kiosk machines, prop bets. So everything you want, and the best part is you can bet on the Oregon Ducks and anything college football. But everything you want is right here. Eagles and Commanders are facing off. So we got 2 NFL games today. Eagles laying 7 points at Washington. And then you've also got the game coming up later with the Bears and Packers, a monster game in the NFC North. And I love these divisional battles when you've got everything on the line. We've got that with Chicago and Green Bay tonight. We've got it with Tampa Bay and Carolina tomorrow. And then we saw it on Thursday with Seattle and the LA Rams. It's amazing to me. I think, most people think the Rams, probably are a better team than the Seahawks. But that's why they play the games. Seattle comes out with an overtime victory. They went for the 2-point conversion. They get the 2-point conversion. They win the game. And now with that victory, it is really down to 2 teams now for the number 1 seed in the NFC. The 49ers and the Seahawks, not the Rams, control their own destiny for home field. Now, the Seahawks have 2 games remaining. They're going to be at Carolina, dangerous game, and then they finish up at San Francisco. Now, the 49ers have got a game coming up on Monday night. They're going to be at Indianapolis to take on the Colts and Grandpa Rivers. And then after that, the 49ers, they're going to be home against the Bears and then home against the Seahawks. So right now, based on pathway, I would favor the Seahawks in that race for the number 1 seed. So can Seattle win 2 games at Carolina, at San Francisco, to be able to secure it? That's the question. But what I like about the Seahawks, John Schneider obviously does a terrific job. He's been, great in the draft of late over the last couple of years. A lot of young talent. Sam Darnold's turned out to be, quite the gem, and he's done a heck of a job the last couple of years, both for the Vikings and the Seahawks. And I like quarterbacks like, Sam Darnold's not the best quarterback in the NFL. He's not a top 5 guy, but what I like about Darnold, highly productive, wins a lot of football games, and what I really like about, Darnold, and I like this trait in a quarterback, the ability to be able to overcome mistakes or adversity throughout the course of a game and finish strong. And we saw that with Darnold, who had thrown a couple of picks that were awful. Seattle's down by 16. They get a punt return for a touchdown. Darnold goes back on the field after the pick, gets a 2-point conversion. Then they get the ball back, and they go right back down the field. Sweet touchdown pass. And then they get a miracle 2-point conversion. And then Darnold, in overtime, after the Rams took the opening kickoff and scored a touchdown, they went right back down the field, scored the touchdown, and got the 2-point conversion. So Darnold finished strong and really changed the way people view him over the course of about 30 minutes on Thursday night. But, Darnold's good. I mean, he puts in the work time, he studies, and, the Rams are really good. And they had a couple of looks that confused him. But I think, Darnold is just – he's one of those guys. I like guys who overcome. We saw it with Geno Smith. Basically if you're drafted by the Jets. Baker Mayfield at the Browns. I like guys who, persevere through those type of circumstances. When you're taken by a crap franchise, you wind up with a bad coach, a bad system, or whatever the case may be. You get, tossed aside because people don't think you can get the job done. And these guys resurface with better coaches in a better situation, and they start to thrive. And I just think that's awesome. So, big credit to Sam Darnold. But the Hawks now in a position. And as I've said before, like Denver, I'm so excited about the Broncos right now. There's an inherent advantage to certain teams if they're playing at home. Denver's going to get the 1 seed in the AFC. And, playing at home in Denver, you got the altitude on your side, which does make a difference. You've got a collegiate-type atmosphere with the crowd. They're going to make a lot of noise. But most importantly, they've got the best pass rush in the NFL. And I think they've got 58 sacks on the season, which is by far the most in the NFL. But that crowd noise with the pass rush, those guys are able to get off the ball sooner. And when you can do that on a big third down, in a pressure-packed situation, it puts you in a position to where you can get the edge and make big plays to win a game. I feel the same way about Seattle. Lumen Field has long been one of the great atmospheres in all of the NFL. And if the Hawks are playing at home, with their pass rush and the way they can get after the quarterback, we saw it on Thursday, they're going to be a tough out if they get the home field advantage. And what I like about Seattle's defense is that they don't have to rely on the blitz to get pressure. Their front four is really good. And, they're opportunistic. So, man, there's so many good teams. I mean, the way that this playoff picture is shaping up, I think we kind of know now. We can kind of look at the standings and the layout, and we can pretty much tell you who's going to be in and who's going to be out. So, in the AFC East, the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills are in. One of those two teams will win the division. Right now, New England's got the inside track, 11-3. Buffalo sits at 10-4. So you're going to get two teams in, New England and Buffalo, from the East. In the AFC North, you're going to get one team. Bengals and Browns have been eliminated. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Whoever wins the division. Right now, Pittsburgh's got the inside track at 8-6. Baltimore sits at 7-7. And the Ravens got that big Sunday night football game coming up against the Patriots in Baltimore tomorrow night. So that's your third team. Two from the East, one from the North. In the AFC South, it looks like you're going to have two teams. Indianapolis, more than likely on the outside looking in. Tennessee's been eliminated. And Jacksonville right now at 10-4. A slight lead on Houston at 9-5. So there are two teams who are going to be in from the AFC South. And those are two of the hottest teams in football. Jacksonville has won 5 straight. Houston has won 6 straight. Then we move on to the AFC West. Denver will be the 1 seed. They're going to win the division. They're at 12-2. And the Chargers, go Chargers, go. They're 10-4. They're going to be at Dallas this weekend. 2 more teams. Those are your 7 from the AFC. New England, Buffalo, Pittsburgh or Baltimore, Jacksonville and Houston, Denver and the LA Chargers. Those are your 7 from the AFC, with Denver being the 1 seed. In the NFC, Dallas has not yet been eliminated, but it looks like Philadelphia, they're at 9-5. Dallas at 6-7. Philadelphia is going to win the division. You're going to get 1 team in from the East. And Dallas will be on the outside looking in. Commanders and Giants have been eliminated already. From the NFC North, you'll get two teams, Chicago and Green Bay, who play later on today. One team will win the division. The other team will be a wild card. That's your two teams from the North. That gives you three teams. We move to the South. Tampa Bay and Carolina both at 7-7. They play twice over the final 3 weeks of the season. You'll get one team in from the South, division winner. And from the NFC West, right now the Hawks, the inside track on the 1 seed and the division crown. Three teams from the NFC West: Seattle, LA Rams, and the San Francisco 49ers. Hawks at 12-3, Rams at 11-4. 49ers haven't played yet. They're going to be at the Colts on Monday night. They sit at 10-4, and the Cardinals have been eliminated. But how about that? Three teams from the West. We thought going into the year it could be three teams from the West, and it's looking like right now it's going to be three teams from the West. But that's pretty impressive. And the great thing about the 49ers, and the reason why Kyle Shanahan deserves to win Coach of the Year, they have been ravaged by injuries, and yet here they are with 3 weeks to go in the regular season, and they control their own destiny for the 1 seed. I would not have thought that was possible. But the one thing we did know going into the year is that the way that the 49ers schedule shaped up, it was a very easy path. And the good thing is about the 49ers, they have taken advantage of it with wins over New Orleans, Arizona, Atlanta, the Giants, the Cardinals again, Carolina, and the Cleveland Browns. And all you can do is play the teams in front of you. And when you got an easy slate like that, or the way it shapes up where it's going to be easier, you got to take advantage. The 49ers have done it through massive injury, and they're getting good play on third down of late from Brock Purdy. So, and Christian McCaffrey's been a super stud. But Kyle Shanahan's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. Robert Sala's done a great job with the defense, which has lost a significant number of high-level players. And if you look at their numbers, like it's been McCaffrey. He's kind of been the key week in and week out. But big credit to Kyle Shanahan. I'm a big fan of the Shanahan family. And, you know, obviously the work and the ties they have to the Broncos organization. But Kyle's done a heck of a job. I mean, just to see this group with 10 wins with 3 weeks to go and a chance to win the number 1 seed when you suffer significant injury tells me a lot about what you're all about. All right, when we come back, Joe DeLeon, college football and NFL draft expert. We'll talk some ball with him. I appreciate your time. I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Parlays, teasers, totals, sides, in-game betting, prop bets, everything you want in one spot. Your place to watch the college football playoff, and you can bet on the Oregon Ducks. Anything college football-wise is good. College hoops, college basketball, the NFL, NBA. The Blazers are favored tonight in Sacramento. We'll come back in here from Joe DeLeon. I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino in the BetMGM Sportsbook on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. BetMGM Sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino, hanging out with a special edition of the Rip City Drive. The Oregon Ducks will kick off at 4:30, and this is your best place to be for the college football playoff throughout its duration, because you can bet on all the college games, including the Oregon Ducks. They've got parlays, teasers, totals, side bets, in-game betting, props, anything and everything you want on NFL and college football. And right now, we've got an early line. Indiana is a 7.5-point favorite over Alabama. And then we've got Ohio State is a 9.5-point favorite over Miami. Those two quarterfinal games are set. Right now at Spirit Mountain Casino for the Oregon Ducks and James Madison. Oregon right now a 21-point favorite for the game coming up later on today. Current odds to win the college football playoff: Alabama 15-1, Georgia 5-1, Indiana is 3-1, 22-1 for Miami. James Madison 500-1. Ohio State the favorite at plus 225. Ole Miss 25-1. Oregon is at 8-1. Texas Tech 9-1, and Tulane, who is trailing at halftime right now to Ole Miss, like James Madison, 500-1. Some of the key football games coming up this weekend. Right now, the game coming up at 5:20 on Fox. Bears are a 1-point favorite over the Packers. Tomorrow, Sunday action. Bills a 10.5-point favorite over the Browns in Cleveland. Saints are a 6.5-point favorite over the Jets in New Orleans. The Vikings are a 2.5-point road favorite at the Giants. Bucks a 3-point favorite at the Panthers. Chiefs are a 3-point favorite at the Titans. Cowboys a 2-point favorite at home over the Chargers. Bengals are laying 4 on the road against the Dolphins, who are going to start Quinn Ewers. Falcons a 3-point favorite at Arizona against the Cardinals. Broncos a 3.5-point favorite over the Jags. Lions laying 7 at home against the Steelers. Texans a 14-point favorite over the Raiders. The Ravens are a 3-point favorite on Sunday Night Football over the Patriots. And Monday Night Football, right now the 49ers are a 5.5-point favorite against Phillip Rivers and the Colts. All right, I had a chance to speak with Joe DeLeon, college football and NFL draft expert. And the first thing I hit him with was the Kirby Moore introductory press conference for Washington State. He is, if you didn't know, is the brother of Kellen Moore, former Boise State quarterback who's now the head coach in New Orleans. He's also, Kirby is from Prosser, Washington, so it's an area he knows. It's not like Kirby Moore's a stranger to the Northwest. You would just think that he would know what conference he's going to be coaching in, but apparently that's not the case. So the first thing I hit Joe with was that soundbite. You got to take a listen to it. I still can't believe that someone on Kirby Moore's crew allowed him to make a buffoon of himself at his introductory press conference, because nothing instills confidence more in a group of people, players, alum, boosters, the administration, whoever, when you don't even know what conference you're going to be coaching in. We're talking to the great Joe DeLeon here on the Rip City Drive. I want to play this for you. I've listened to it about 200 times. I still can't believe it. Kirby Moore, brother of Kellen Moore, from Prosser, Washington, exited from the staff at Missouri to take over the head coaching job at Washington State. And this is what he had to say at the opening presser.
Moving forward, the time is now at Washington State to be the leader in the new Mountain West Conference.
I mean, how does he make that mistake, and how does someone around him allow him to make that mistake? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a good start. I just kept it on Twitter. You're trying to start hot here. You're trying to galvanize everybody, talking like you're at a lower level, at a lower conference, when the Pac-12 is trying to have all this hype and whatnot. It's just, that's tough. That's absolutely tough.
So bad. All right, tomorrow Oregon is going to take on James Madison. Like, the Ducks are going to win the game. I don't doubt that. They're favored by more than 3 touchdowns. But James Madison, really good defensively, mobile quarterback, which Oregon has struggled with to a degree. Like, do you think James Madison will provide any resistance, or do you expect Oregon to steamroll them?
No, there's going to be no resistance. I think that Oregon's going to smoke them. And for the first part, when we watched at the beginning of the year, when they saw significantly inferior opponents, they didn't take their foot off the gas. That's Dan Lanning's MO. He understands what comes out of a a blowout victory. It's a confidence builder. It really makes you feel good when you really, really overwhelm an opponent to that degree where you blow them out by a ridiculous number. Oklahoma State, Montana State, they worked them. The other thing, too, with this JMU team, they're really not that impressive. They've got a good record. They've won their way through the Sun Belt. In the Sun Belt Championship game, they were in a dogfight with Troy until the fourth quarter. And they also allowed a lot of big plays to Ra Thomas, a former Power 4 wide receiver who was on that Troy team. You ended up seeing some cracks with that secondary that I think is going to get really threatened by this Oregon passing attack. I just don't think that they've got the bodies of the athletes to keep up with them. Good for them for getting here. It was a technicality that got them here, but they're not going to be able to put up much of a fight.
Do you think Oregon now, this year, up front in the trenches with the play they've had from their offensive and defensive lines, are they good enough to compete with anybody in this playoff field now and potentially win a championship?
I think that they are, and I know that their sack production has not been as exciting as I think a lot of people hoped it could have been. There was maybe this belief that, hey, Mateo Uyunglele takes a jump forward and the whole group just ends up being overwhelming. I think that, though, you still see the physicality and the depth. I'm a big Amari Washington fan. I think he's a really, really underrated player, and he just wreaks so much havoc in the interior. I think that this defense is solid enough for them to be able to go to war with Texas Tech. And we already saw them play in a tight game against Indiana. And I think that in a rematch situation on a neutral field, it's going to be a spot that Dan Lanning should be able to steal one. It's hard to beat a good team twice. I didn't think that there was much separation between those two squads when they played the first time. It just happened that Indiana ended up executing in the areas where they needed to finish that thing off. But this Oregon team absolutely can get there, and it'll be really interesting to see if Evan Stewart and Corey Moore are ready to go, because if they are, that could be a separator for them hitting another gear that we didn't even know that they had.
Oh, that's a good point about the receivers. With Dante Moore, look, I've just assumed all along that he's going to jump to the NFL draft, but now there's, whispers around here that he might come back for another season. What's your take on that situation? Should Dante come back for another year? Should he jump to the draft? How do you see that?
I'm mixed on it because I'm generally of the belief that playing more football for quarterbacks, very specifically quarterbacks, is good. There's so many guys that have played long careers. I mean, Bo Nix is the guy that the Ducks just saw that was there for a long period of time, and he finally played to his true potential of being a top player in the country by sticking around and just being around football for so long. And I think that Dante Moore could hit another gear, but at the same time, he without a doubt would be one of the top two quarterbacks selected. He could be in the running to be the first overall pick. I think that it's going to come down to what style of quarterback teams want between him and Fernando Mendoza. This quarterback class is really weak. Ty Simpson cooled off a lot, and it seems like outside of even Simpson, if he still goes in the first round, there's nobody else. Brendan Sorsby, if he goes in the transfer portal permanently and transfers instead of entering the draft, which I know is up in the air, he's like the last guy that might get considered. John Mateer maybe, but as we talked about earlier, he had a rough second half of the year. He's probably more of a day two prospect. Dante Moore would get a lot of consideration for being a very, very high draft pick. So that would, I think, be the motivator for even if he isn't fully developed. The other part of this, too, is losing Will Stein. You don't really know what the offense can be like next year. You had a really good year this year, but why risk trying to figure out things with a new OC when your draft stock is as high as it's possibly going to be?
That's very interesting. Another quarterback that you and I like, Sam Levitt, will transfer from Arizona State and go elsewhere. According to all the reports, all the big schools would have interest. Texas Tech, potentially Indiana, Miami, potentially Oregon. Do you have any ideas on what might be the best fit for Levitt to, kind of regroup after the foot injury and improve his draft stock?
Yeah, I think that the two schools that get me really intrigued are LSU and Miami. I think that Miami, knowing the Shannon Dawson's offense and the way that it's worked with mobile quarterbacks, specifically Cam Ward, who both he and Levitt are very good improvisational guys, like point guard style playmakers. I think that fit would be really exciting. But, man, I just think about Lane Kiffin and what he got out of Jackson Dart. And the athletic traits are similar to Jackson Dart. The ability to throw on the run is similar to Jackson Dart. And the aggressiveness is similar to Jackson Dart. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think that you could unlock a lot of the same production that Dart had in his final years when he was at Ole Miss and playing for Kiffin. So I think that LSU destination would ultimately be the best spot for him, and he could end up becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC.
Boy, that'd be a lot of fun to watch, Sam Levitt with Lane Kiffin for sure. You mentioned Jackson Dart. I wanted to ask you, because I know you're close to the Giants situation. Like, I love Jackson Dart, and I love his toughness, but how do you coach a quarterback to be smarter about the hits that he chooses to take to protect his body? Because I'm concerned that he's getting himself, severely hurt, and he's such a great talent.
Yeah, I think it's something that's not going to be coached out of him immediately. I think that one thing that's bothered me hearing Brian Daboll was talking about this before he got fired, and then now Kafka, the interim, keeps saying, like, oh, we don't want to coach that out of him. We don't want him to lose his aggressiveness. It's this repeated belief that you don't want him to play too cautiously, but at the same time, I think that they need to be really deliberate about saying, Jackson, you got to slide. Jackson, you got to stop trying to put your body on the line, because it will cost him. The amount of medical evaluations that he keeps having and not having concussions, it's going to just keep going up, and then eventually he's going to start suffering real injuries and real serious injuries. I think that he does need to just approach things a lot more casually, and he doesn't need to think that he needs to put everything on his shoulders. I think first and foremost that they need to do less with him as a runner. I think that they need to figure out their run game, and he needs to not be the primary option. Josh Allen is obviously important for the Bills' offense and what they do, but they're not solely relying on him as a runner. He runs when he needs to. There are design situations when he runs, but the amount of times that Dart is effectively like the focal point of a rushing play, that to me is what's maybe kind of contributing to this.
We're talking to Joe DeLeon here on the Rip City Drive. Miami and Texas A&M will kick off tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I feel like you might be getting good value with the Canes at plus 3.5. I do like how they've played up front, especially with their interior running game with that offensive line. How do you see this matchup?
Yeah, I think that A&M's going to win this. I think that, we were talking about earlier with Oklahoma and the importance of this for getting here. Talk about A&M and how they've been scratching and clawing to be this relevant, and now they're here. And the other part that comes with it is that they were in the sights of getting to an SEC championship game and got embarrassed by their biggest rival, who they tried to escape from the shadow of. And I think that with that comes a lot of motivation, similar to the motivation that Ohio State had last year when they lost to Michigan. I think if they internalize that and they really put their sights on Miami, they should be able to beat them, and they should be able to advance. This is going to be in a really rowdy home setting for A&M. And I think the other part with this is that Miami's secondary has had issues this year going up against the best passing attacks that they saw when they faced Louisville and they faced SMU. They lost those games because they gave up big plays to two individual receivers on those particular teams. I think that Craver and Concepcion are going to get after that secondary and produce a lot of big plays.
Gosh, I can't wait to watch that. I wanted your take on the AFC. I'm a Broncos fan, so I'm pretty excited about 11 straight wins and the pass rush, and the idea of the Broncos playing at home, and Bo Nix over the last month has been great. But, man, the conference now, compared to like 6 or 7 weeks ago, you take a look around and you've got Denver that's on fire, New England, which has been upstart throughout the season. They've been impressive with Coach Vrabel. And now the Texans and the Jags are both on fire, and you've still got Josh Allen, who's the best player in the world probably. So how do you look at the AFC and who you think are the main teams to potentially come out and represent in the Super Bowl?
Man, I really think it's going to be Josh Allen's year this year, and I know that their record doesn't really reflect that because they dropped a couple head-scratching games in the middle of the year. The way that they were able to rally against the Patriots really caught my attention, and I thought that was like, oh, okay, they're locking in. They're really ready to go. I think the biggest part with all this this is the year that he needs to get to a Super Bowl, Josh Allen. Forget the Bills, forget all that. Josh Allen, this is the year that he needs to get to the Super Bowl. There's no Mahomes. There's no Joe Burrow. There's potentially no Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. It's all these young dudes that are leading their team. It's Bo Nix. It is Drake May. Now is their shot. Now is his shot to get there and to win a Super Bowl. I think that in a year where it feels like there's more parity than ever, they need to make that push, and I think that the focus from this Bills squad is going to get them there. It just feels like one of those seasons where maybe everything hasn't been great, but they've willed their way to victories in particular situations that have kept them in the mix for winning the division.
All right, one final question for you, Joe. How great was that football game last night with the Hawks and the Rams? I've seen some great Thursday night football games, but, man, that one was riveting. Yeah,
and I got to be quite honest with you. I dismissed the game for a period of time. I was like, "Oh, this is a blowout. I don't need to pay too close attention to this." And then, to figure out to go back and make sure I didn't miss the end of it, in the controversy of it. It's ridiculous. And the craziest part about all of it is how it affects the seeding in the NFC, where it looked like the Rams were in the driver's seat, quite literally in the game, and also if they won, they would have had a nice little cushion. But now that they lost, the Seahawks are in the driver's seat, and the 49ers are potentially in position, if they went out and they beat the Rams coming up, that they could end up being the number one seed in the NFC. Yeah, it's really, really crazy, and I think that is, it's just built up the seeming balance, apparently, with the teams in the playoff this year.
Well, Joe, I certainly love talking with you, buddy. Hey, enjoy the smorgasbord of football this weekend, because we got the playoff tonight with Bama and Oklahoma. We got 2 NFL games tomorrow, which are great, with a triple header in the college football playoff leading into an NFL Sunday. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, of course, and I'm fired up. I appreciate you having me as always.
Always a pleasure to chat with Joe DeLeon, NFL draft and college football expert. We got games that are rolling right now. Tulane, Ole Miss at halftime. Miami upset Texas A&M down at Kyle Field at College Station. And we're getting ready for Oregon and James Madison. Now, you need to get down to Spirit Mountain Casino. It's pretty simple. Game's going to kick off in 2 hours. And if you'd like to get in on the action, Spirit Mountain Casino is your place to bet on college sports. They've got a Vegas-style setup. Love this place because it's clean. It's well organized, cushy chairs. You've got the stadium bar. You've got 10 Barrel Brewing. You can get food, beverage, all right here. Everything you need is in one spot. Parlays, teasers, totals, sides, in-game betting, prop bets, everything you want. NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA, anything and everything. UFC, it's a great spot. And I'm a big fan of Spirit Mountain Casino. And I always love it when Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager, joins the show. But get down here. Look, you don't want to be stuck at home with the possibility to get drug out to go Christmas shopping, or you'll get stuck doing some type of yard work or honey-do list. Man, you don't need that. What you need is some, good old dude time. Come to hang down at Spirit Mountain Casino and check out the college football playoff and get in on the action. Your place to bet on college sports. Your telephone number, if you want to reach out to me, is 503-248-0620. You can hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. The biggest thing I've been trying to figure out is, what would you do with this number here with Oregon? -21. Is Dan Lanning going to try and run it up? Will James Madison's defense be able to keep the game close? They do have a mobile quarterback, and those guys have given Oregon some trouble throughout the course of the year. I mean, it's hard to imagine, James Madison. I don't know. I don't know what to think. I just know that James Madison is a great program, but I'm anxious to see what Dan Lanning, brings to the table today in their first playoff game, which is going to be at home. And James Madison, can you imagine what it's going to be like for them stepping into Autzen and then a kickoff with how loud the crowd's going to be and the atmosphere? It's going to blow their domes. You just don't know until you know. What's amazing to me is how Oregon is able to make the type of noise they do with so few bodies. There were 122,000 people at the Texas A&M game today. That is just 122,000 people. You know, Autzon's capacity, I think, is like 54,000. So you had 122,000. That's more than double. That's more than double. And that's just insane. Autzen is awesome. And then you get 122,000 people in one spot watching a college football game. Like, wrap your mind around that one. That is 68,000 more people at the Texas A&M game. The SEC is crazy. But Autzen Stadium, atmosphere-wise, one of the best in the country. And James Madison's going to get a taste of that coming up at 4:30. So I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Get down here. Kickoff's going to be at 4:30. You can get in on the action and watch it in the best sports book in the area. That's the BetMGM Sportsbook at Spirit Mountain Casino. All right, this is pretty amazing, but I'm looking at Ticketmaster right now on the app, and there are still a ton of unsold seats for the playoff game today with Oregon and James Madison. And I'm not talking about the secondary market. I'm talking about tickets that you can just purchase at face value. And I'm trying to look now. Let's see here. It looks like about the cheapest you can get in. They've got, you can get in for $54 right now if you're buying a single. That's pretty amazing to me. But that's the problem with the home playoff game. Depending on your seed and who you're going to be matched up with, it's James Madison. Like, if you're a Duck fan, I can't speak for you, but I'm sure being at the game would be fine. But the problem is with James Madison, you know who's going to win the game. Like, you know the outcome. Oregon's going to win. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to cover, right? And that's the conversation that everyone down here is having. Will the Ducks be able to cover? But you already know the outcome. The Ducks are going to win, so then you got to start to you calculate the cost. It's like, okay, the game kicks off at 4:30. The game probably won't get over until about 8:30, which means if I've got to drive a couple hours, I won't get home until probably around 10:30, 11. Got to deal with the traffic, got to deal with all the nonsense. And then you're like, I think I'll just sit this one out and stay at home. Now, had Alabama come to town or Ole Miss or any of the other teams that aren't Group of Five, that place would be sold out without question, and people would be geeked out of their minds to go. But that wasn't the case because James Madison is James Madison. No disrespect to James Madison, but we don't care about that like we would Alabama. Or if Miami were in there with Mario Cristobal, how great would that be? And so I'm just hoping eventually we'll get to a point where, as college football continues to restructure, that we continue to get farther away from the bowl games. It drives you crazy that we can't have campus site games leading all the way up to the national championship and then just rotate whatever bowl you want to have the championship game in, rotate them around for the championship game each year, and then you're set. And not only that, but I think it's asking an awful lot, for the fan base, to put them in a position to where they have to travel around the country to watch multiple playoff games and then, fork out the Jake for that. There's a lot of money. It's big-time money, right? So if you're the Duck fan, if the Ducks, when they beat James Madison, you got to plan a trip to Miami for the Orange Bowl. And then after that, if they advance, you got to plan a trip to Georgia for the Peach Bowl. And then if they win that and get to the title game, then you got to plan a trip to Miami. So we're talking Eugene to Miami to Georgia, back to Miami if they get to the title game. And that's a lot of money and expense when you could have it where the Ducks play home, 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 or potentially home, home campus site. You could just reseed the games as you advance, and then boom. Then all of a sudden you got the championship game, which is Miami. That's the way they need to do it. But, of course, we still have old crusty clowns that are running college football, and so they're trying to hold on to dear life to the things that they value the most, meaning whatever's going to help make them money. And that's why they love their stupid bowl games. And I like bowl games, don't get me wrong, but when you're talking about college football playoff, they need to do campus sites. Ole Miss has tacked on another touchdown. They're up on Tulane 24-3 with just over 8 minutes to play in the third quarter. And right now, Philadelphia with a 7-3 lead on Washington with 13 minutes to play in the first half. So not only do we have a college football triple header in the playoff today, but we also have an NFL doubleheader with the Commanders and Eagles from D.C., and then later on at 5:20 on Fox, we're going to have the awesome game, NFC North battle with the Packers and the Bears, who just played a couple of weeks ago. So I love these division matchups late in the season. It's pretty awesome. But Washington right now getting 7 points at home and hanging tough with 12 minutes to play in the first half. But I like the Ducks to win, and that's going to set up a sweet matchup in the January 1st game against Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. Texas Tech is a terrific football team. Oregon's a terrific football team. Both teams very good defensively and stout at the line of scrimmage. That's going to be a battle right there. And Texas Tech, they wanted to be elite. They went out and paid for it. Now they're elite. It's pretty amazing how that works, right? When you sometimes in life you do get what you pay for. My grandma used to send me. She would cut out articles from Consumer Reports to let me know what knockoff brands were okay, what generic brands were okay, and which ones weren't. But in life, sometimes you do get what you pay for. And in college football, if you spend big money, it can really pay off in terms of a roster with having the guys you need to be able to compete. But isn't that interesting that Texas Tech spent huge money in the portal, and what they do? They beefed up their defensive line. And they realized that, hey, we can't construct ourselves like the Big 12 used to be. We have to, think outside of the box and become a more defensive-minded team. And that's what they've done. And now they put themselves in a position to where they can compete against Oregon or whoever at the line of scrimmage. And when you do that, you're going to be in a great position to win. All right, Tulane right now trying to move the football, 2nd down and 10. And they're approaching midfield. I mean, Tulane has not played a bad football game, but, Ole Miss has just been spot on. And Ole Miss only one loss on the year. That was to Georgia. I just like what Ole Miss has brought to the table all year. I love their running back, Lacey. Lacey's been fun to watch. Physical runner between the tackles. Trinidad Chambliss has been a big playmaker. Like Lane Kiffin did build something pretty special there before he made his jump to LSU. But Ole Miss has been impressive. And so now, Oregon will move on to meet Texas Tech. We have the quarterfinal set up in the Rose Bowl. It's going to be Alabama and Indiana. And right now the Hoosiers, an early line of 7.5-point favorite over the Crimson Tide. Ole Miss will take on Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And then we have the other quarterfinal matchup set, Miami and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And right now the Buckeyes, an early 9.5-point favorite after Miami took care of business this morning against Texas A&M. And the funny part is Notre Dame, they were complaining last night and this morning, and they're watching a game between Miami and Texas A&M. It's like, hey, clowns, hey, domers, you lost to both those teams. You lost to both of them. But I do like that the two teams that no one thought should be in there, Miami and Alabama, what did they do? They went out and got the first two road wins of the first round of the college football playoff and looked very worthy in the process, which is cool. I thought Alabama was great in their comeback. They scored 27 unanswered after getting down 17-zip early at Oklahoma, and they came back and won the game by 10, and they made all the big plays in all three phases. They were better in offense, defense, and special teams. And then for Miami today, they struggled with special teams, but defensively they did a really good job, and their defense continued to get stops throughout the course of the game, and then they put themselves in a position to where they could get over and get the win, which is great. And so credit to Mario Cristobal, because it's easy to criticize Mario Cristobal for, some of the in-game decisions that he's made over the course of time, but he's getting better and learning how to get the job right at Miami. So we'll see how it works out. All right, so Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. Get down here. The Oregon game will kick off at 4:30. People are starting to file in, but still plenty of open seats where you can come down and enjoy the game. Right now the Ducks are a 21-point favorite, so you can come down and get in on the action. Parlays, teasers, totals, side bets, in-game betting, and prop bets, everything you need for college football, the NFL, college basketball, the NBA, anything and everything's right here at your Northwest Premier Entertainment destination, Spirit Mountain Casino. Big thanks to Justin Ballinger for joining the show, the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, and Brendan Slaughter for engineering the program. You will hear me tonight on the Trailblazer broadcast. Blazers game day at 5 with Chris Burkhardt. Tip-off at 7 with the Sacramento Kings. Right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Thanks, Brendan.